it would be fun to jump in and maybe talk a little bit. We had some questions asked of us. Get a chance to be able to talk live about the podcast, because generally it's just one direction out there.
That's right.
And enjoying having an ability for you guys to pop in and ask questions, etc.
And really, this is all things relational. So it's your chance to ask anything that you like and see people work out things live. And but I wanted to start with how hard, people are really having a hard time right now. What was I going to say? They're crashing and burning.
Yeah.
And I would include myself in that. And
yeah.
You seem to somehow, you might be crashing, but you're not burning or something. I don't know why. Anne's bouncy a little bit more than some of us. But for the moment.
I've had some crashes.
Yeah, we can really seesaw sometimes.
Well, it's been, seriously, we're smiling. It's and I think it's not just in the United States, that, not only with the variant and the fires and the war in Afghanistan and just the
Ethiopia, the genocide in Ethiopia, and
a lot of people really feeling a bit exhausted. So
yeah, we thought we had a finish line and then we don't. So for any parents out there that are feeling guilty right now, I know that I had gone on not too long ago and said this, but I really mean it. It's don't worry about your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids are probably fine. As a matter of fact, think about it. They probably had it much better than you did. And you've had however many years that you've had them with you at more capacity than probably that you are now. So they have all of that stored in their bodies, that's in their nervous system, all of those decisions that you've made up to now that don't go away just because you yell at your kids, or just because you're not there as much as you want to be, or that you're sick. Some of us are physically sick because of everything. Autoimmune disorder. Everything is heightened. So the first message I wanted to say is that we've got to get off of our backs. Your marriage might be suffering a little bit. Your kids might be suffering a little bit. But often there's many women that watch us, and often we kind of are the tent pole to a lot of things. And so we're just saying, let's take care of the tent pole, whatever. I don't even want to genderize it because I don't believe that. But I just am saying, if you're a tent pole to a community, then right now you've got to trust that your community's okay, and that it's okay for you to come back to yourself and take a breath. We should probably do that.
Take a breath now.
Let's do it. Wherever you're watching from. Because our nervous system is picking up implicitly all the threat that Anne was just talking about. There's this drumbeat of danger, and there's no way that our nervous system can filter that out. So then what happens is we just try to push it to the side, and most of the time it is, but then we end up doing stupid things, So what we're saying, if you're a tent pole, if you support a community, right now you're just going to have to let some of that go, let plates fall, oxygen mask on you first. It's okay to disappoint someone. It's okay to let somebody down.
It's okay. I also want to jump in and say it's okay to disagree. I know that.
No, it's not.
Disagree. I know a lot of times I'm seeing a lot of conflict right now amongst people who have deep love for each other, either couples or family members, especially with how do we handle the variant, how do we handle these different things in society, and it's really painful. And I think one of the things I wanted to say about that is to remember with yourself that you guys may disagree, and that the outcome of that is not the answer. There's not a right answer, right? Yeah. There's not a right answer, that safety's first, and that you can say, I can see you feel stressed by this, I feel stressed by this. Let's be in a dilemma together and really try to talk and work through to keep our bodies safe, rather than believing, this is a core, rather than believing you have the answer, if somebody would just listen to you.
Right, that's part of how we polarize, is that, based on my information it's this, based on your information it's this. And then not only do I think I'm right, I think you're dumb, and we begin to get further and further apart, instead of, I think, what Anne's talking about, which is get the action out of it, and instead get our ears back on, come to listen to what the concerns of the other person are, because then that will help them settle, which will then help them hear you. So you'll be more effective in your communication if you can notch down the whole system.
So, and the thing you were saying earlier, oxygen mask on first. We started by kind of teasing, but meaning that we can feel ourselves a little frightened, and if you can physiologically kind of feel you're less tolerant. Just know that's real normal right now, and that it's going to be hopefully temporary, and that we need to take really good care of ourselves.
Hello, Andrew McBeardy. Oh my God, they're really here. Yes, and oh my God, you're really here. So happy to be able to say hello. Hey, Ashley and Leanne. Thank you guys for showing up, and just use the chat. We've got a couple of questions that we're going to jump into right now. But go ahead and just let us know your thoughts. You know, it doesn't have to be a question, because we don't want it to be performative where you have to make up a question, but just say what's on your mind. Say where you're participating from, and let's just get it going. And
Jane from Toronto. I love that.
Awesome. Hi, Jane.
We love knowing where you guys are from.
You want to jump on the first question?
Yeah, we had some people send in questions independently before this, so we'll start with a question or two of those that have sent in, and then if you guys on the chat want to throw a question in, then we can actually, if you see me looking over, I'm not reading my text, I'm reading your chat. So one of the questions we got is, and I guess this is related to what you were talking about, but tips on how to get a young child to move towards green in a stressful situation, especially if they, in a stressful situation, tend to lean blue or red. So maybe we should start by
just very quickly
talking about those colors.
Oh, I actually have a question. So also indicate in the chat, when we say like red and blue and stuff like that, do you have any idea what we're talking about? And because if everybody kind of knows it, we don't want to spend time on it. But if this is new to you, be sure and kind of let us know. But you want to just do the 30-second version of it?
Yeah, I don't do anything in 30 seconds, but I will try. So what is she, and I love that people are referencing
slow down. It doesn't have to be 30 seconds.
So what I think this is Alita Breed. So hey, if you're out there, it's a super great question actually. But what she means is, how do we get our child into the green? And the green is a place of finding a secure connection with yourself and those around you. So it's a place of security. So some of us, depending on our childhood raising, we live there more. Some of us than others, and some of us, but we all hit a green place of security, and we can help each other relationally get there.
That's right. It's like an integrated thinking, feeling. DBT calls it a wise mind.
Right. And then is she, familiar with it. Okay, then when we talk about the red, we are talking about our nervous system. When we feel threat, all of us tend to have a nervous system response. Some of us upregulate, and we become more intense, more vigilant about the world, more highly emotional, more reactive, and that's what we call the red, because it's kind of hot. The blue is when our nervous system goes more down regulation. We go a lot more intellectual, have a harder time integrating emotions, etc.
That can look like dissociation or denial or just kind of numbing out.
Right.
So going back to the question.
Well, let me answer with Andrew. You're right in that red tends to be more angry and blue more withdrawn. But but somebody in the blue side can get pretty self-righteously angry too when you're in that moment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, so think of it, instead of thinking it like anger and not anger, it's more of like, everybody has all of the whole, I think of it like a keyboard of emotion. And, there's like, the harmony that feels so good to feel. And then, all the different sort of chords. So everybody has all those chords, but it's more how we express it so for example, if somebody's angry, that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Whether we're expressive of it out here, whether we, drop it down. Because one of the things about if our nervous systems have learned to downregulate, sometimes we don't even know we're angry. We just it looks like, oh God, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't feel like anger, but we're emitting anger.
That's
but anyway,
great.
so going back to the question about the child.
So how do you help the child, let's just say, who is really dysregulated? So they could be dysregulated in the red, or they could be although there's a little bit different or withdrawn and sulking. Mm-hmm. I think that I think you would agree with me, the most important thing is to regulate yourself first. That is a number one key, because through neuroception, our kids are going to pick up from us. And this is the hardest thing, though, because when you have a child yelling and elevated, our body goes elevated, and we want most of the time to do anything but to stop it. And it could elevate us, and we tend up elevating the system between the two.
Yeah, that's what we call neural Wi-Fi. This is truth, which is that basically our nervous systems will sync up, naturally sync up. So if your child is anxious and that makes you anxious, nobody's helping anybody not be anxious. If your child is anxious and you're able to do what you need to do, what Anne's saying, and keep your metronome a little bit more steady and not panic, your child is fine, even if they're dysregulated, then that's going to help them be able to sink more into where you're going. Now, and the other thing I wanted to say about that question, though, is that if you see your child being very expressive emotionally or shutting down, like, we're not diagnosing anybody. That's not like, oh, that's preoccupied attachment and this is disorganized. I mean, this is dismissive attachment. That's not at all what we want to do. Right now, we're just talking about more, those of you familiar, like more polyvagal, regulatory states, because that's something that we can change in a heartbeat. If we're a little bit up, our breath is going to be important through all of this. It can bring us down. If we're a little bit shut down and like whatever, blah, 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 which is really common because of all the isolation with COVID, that it's more about gaining energy and beginning to try to care again.
Right. Look, I was like, yeah, it's the care again. And so it's easier said than done. And even though we're talking about kids, this is also partners. It's like, what do you do when somebody else is really dysregulated?
Yeah,
whether it be your dyad or not, like that.
Your principal.
So one of the things that triggers our attachment to go red or blue more than anything is a threat. The fear of being cut off, right? The idea of threat and the idea that your body is highly activated. And the other thing is, like, we start to be scared that our emotions are too much, right? And so the more with our kids especially, if they're highly regulated and you're going, this is horrible, you got to go to your room, what you're saying is your emotions are too much, too intense, they need to stop. And actually what we don't want to do is just stop. We want to bring them down, right? Or like a child that is down, we want to bring them up. It's a process. It's not a like, and what happens is we panic. So the more you can not panic yourself, and you can go, like, even to yourself, go, I can handle this. This is not a crisis.
Right. Every parent across the globe is struggling with something like this right now. So me and all of these parents with these dysregulated kids, let's just sort of, hang tight. That's kind of that self-compassion that Neff, we spoke with Neff and her research. It's like no matter what's happening, you move to self-compassion. That's actually the smartest move that you can make.
Well, and Leanne, your question's a good one, and that is there a particular type of breathing that works best for the red zone? And one of the things is be sure not to hold your breath. Sometimes what happens, you'll notice when you get really tense, you're actually holding your breath, and that actually panics your body even more. So the idea is to breathe in and breathe out kind of slowly, breathing in slow, breathe out slowly, and just telling your body, but like you said, this is hard, I'm okay, we're okay. And oftentimes when somebody's dysregulated, you can say, hey, we're going to be okay, I promise, but I really want to hear what's going on. The other thing you want to do is identify, I can see you're angry. I see you're angry, and that matters. So let's get to a place where I can hear you more. So it's not stop that, it's I can see you're angry, and this is great with partners, and I can be there.
Why don't you do that more? That's a great advice. Yeah. So, I'll tell you my favorite breathing thing, because I can never remember any of them. And by the way, there's a lot of really cool stuff that we've probably covered, but about even like if you're inhaling through your nose, things like that change things. So your question, Leanne, is actually there is truth to like being more specific, but because I'm not that smart, I just kind of go with what do I remember. And there's a few that I remember, but my favorite one is what they call box breathing, which is really just, it's like you inhale to 4, so it's like hold it for 4, exhale for 4.
How do you feel calmer?
Right. Just that alone, doesn't matter which side you're on. So, another question? You had another?
Okay, so yes, we've had actually a couple of people, did we just get a question? We've had a couple people ask us about how we relate how we relate jealousy and envy, those kind of emotions that none of us particularly love to live in. How do we relate that to attachment?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, how we got this particular question was through SpeakPipe. So if you go to our website, therapistuncensored.com, and go to contact us, there's a little voicemail. So you can actually leave us a live voicemail. We'll hear it. Sometimes, we'll hear them all. Some of them we respond to. So this was literally a question from there.
Yeah, and we try to respond. Honestly, if we don't respond directly, it may be that we're thinking about it like this one. So let's talk about jealousy. I mean, I think that the first experience that I would say about jealousy is the most normal emotion, and it's actually a very healthy emotion. And it's something that is there because it helps us know that things are valuable, that we want to hold on to those things that we are attached to. And the thought and the threat of losing it is supposed to give you a response and create some fear. And I would think of jealousy as an attention getter. So having jealousy is a very important thing. How it varies probably with your attachment is how you experience it, how much distress you have, and then how you deal with it. What do you think?
No, totally. Because you can have not enough jealousy, meaning that you're not feeling your need and desire. Now, it could be just because you feel secure. Cool. We're together here. I feel secure. That's why I'm not jealous. But what I mean is, because we can also feel like, if you think about it, it's not even about another person. Sometimes it can be about a project or your job that you're spending all your time at your job. And we can begin to, it's weird, but I don't know if even that's the right word, is jealousy. But what it is our nervous system is picking up some threat to the dyad. So if you feel none ever, that's something.
That is actually not a sign of security.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I know, I can tell you that, I didn't initially know what it was, and I was just angry. It's like, you're doing that thing, and it's like somebody had to teach me, it's like, so I think you're jealous. I was like, oh my God, I'm jealous. It's true. It was awesome.
Yes, that's a good point, though. Like, how does jealousy manifest is really important, and how much it distresses you. And when we're in a dismissing state, if we run into the blue, if we're kind of related to attachment, if we are disconnected from the value of the relationship, then we can be apathetic. I'm not jealous. So what you're saying is you can disappear on me and I'd be fine. So you could see that that's actually not a state of security. That's a state that I'm disconnected from the importance of the relationship. Other side is also true, and I think the person calling in was about that, and that is if you are too highly activated by jealousy, kind of on a perpetual basis where you feel this high need to control, probably that's the time that you might be on a more preoccupied place, and that we want to talk about it, but we want to talk about it we want to get in touch with it as I feel super threatened. But what we tend to do is we try to control our environment in order not to have that feeling.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Stop doing that, because I think the core, we'll just sum up here, and we can come back to it if we want, but I think that it's just to remember that if you're having it, sometimes what we think the goal is to stop that feeling, when really that feeling is information for you to figure out what the threat is and talk through it. It's not bad that you have it, it's information. And what we try to do is we try to control people to say, stop making me feel this way. If you don't do that behavior, I won't feel this way. Reverse that.
Well, and that makes me think of another thing, because this could apply to just about anything. Because again, during COVID, we're stuck with people, we're separated from, we're isolated, all the things. Whatever we do, we're all a little bit I don't want to speak for everybody, but we're regressed a little bit. So here's the thing is, if you've got somebody on your radar that you're upset with or that you're let down by,
that's a good point.
Another really good move is to move back towards yourself. It's like, why is this upsetting me? What do I need to do to regulate so that it's not, you're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing this. It's like, what's the ask? Find your ask. What is it that you would like? What do you want? And that is going to be much more inviting of the other person than you didn't do this and you didn't do this and you didn't do this. Although that's when it's the easier thing to do.
Right.
But so even if they don't do the thing, the question is, what if they don't do the thing? Can I be okay? What do I need to do? Like, what is this stirring for me? And this is where the good therapy stuff can come in. It's like, is this a familiar feeling? Is feeling like I'm let down a familiar feeling? Is feeling like I'm invaded a familiar feeling? Like, oh, these people just won't leave me alone. Whatever, like, those are the kinds of things that we want to begin to track. And that's a lot of what we talk about really wanting to look at your, it's called internal working models, or we call them maps sometimes, but it's the unconscious story that we carry with us in relationships. And that unconscious story could be very positive. This isn't dissing on parents or anything. It can be very positive, like, I can assume security, and if you're not there, then I can be a little upset about it because I have a healthy entitlement. That's an unconscious working model. Just like, see, I knew you were going to let me down, is that as well.
And one of the ways that plays out, actually, is a great tap into, we're still using the word jealousy, but it could be any emotions, to know if your internal working model, we're talking about people having jealousy, but what about dealing with it, or dealing with negative emotions?
Oh, yeah, good one.
If you're over there and you're somebody who's, the idea of dealing with negative emotions is to tell the person that they're ridiculous for having them, or you feel like you have to defend yourself. So somebody says, I'm jealous, and you're like, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing anything, and you're just defending your posture. I want to help you recognize it's a normal first attempt.
Yeah.
But to go, wait, like, there's a threat, you're feeling a threat, it might be for no reason, it might be for a reason I'm not recognizing. But either way, you're feeling it, and just to tell you you're ridiculous and to stop feeling it isn't going to help. So when we get into a really blue state, sometimes we're like, how do you say this about me? Rather than, the question would be, what makes you say this? Why do you say that?
Or even not even, well, that's better too than defending. But also, it's like, no matter what the reason is, your loved person that is coming to you in distress is in distress.
Yeah.
And regardless of it's a misunderstanding, or they're misinterpreting, or I really did do something, whatever it is, our job is to mutually connect and to help them with their distress, even if it doesn't make sense. And what's great about that is if we're good at doing that, then they're going to be better at doing that for us too. So it's a win-win. So
much so, yeah.
So I like you talking about when somebody else is upset, and that you don't have to fix it. You don't have to understand, it's like this notion of just being with them. Because a lot of times people, especially if, the whole thing about we need to fix it, or, I was somebody that if I didn't have a fever, I couldn't be sick. But I had to have something to point to, because I wasn't.
It's hard for you to tune in.
I didn't trust my cues enough to know that, oh no, I just don't feel good. But when I had a fever, I was like, oh, that's the thing. And so I know many of you can relate to stuff like that. So it's more of like, if somebody's saying that's the thing, then we want to respond. And they don't have to have a fever. They don't have to be bleeding, that they're in distress. And so then that's, when we can open up of like, oh God, that sounds awful. I hate the feeling of jealousy. I don't want you to feel jealous.
Right. If you, the idea. Like
just
even,
that softness.
Even when you just say it now, don't you relax? Like, I hate that feeling of jealousy.
I hate
it. You know what you're saying there, which is going back. You're saying, I get the feeling of jealousy. Like, it's understandable, right? And it's okay. It's like, oh, you're feeling jealous. Horrible. That sucks.
Yeah, totally. And Ashley, thank you, Ashley. This is great. She's saying that box breathing has helped, especially her kids, and that one of them calls it dragon breaths, and the other one calls it unicorn breaths, which I totally love.
Love it.
So teaching your kids these things, what I used to do with my youngest was we would have a candle. Here's a blowing, and I would say, blow out the candle. And so there would be like this, And
that's good, yeah.
So unicorn breaths, dragon breaths. Another thing you can do for kids is you lay them on their back, right? And you put a stuffed animal, and you put it on their, not up here, right? Because we're trying to get people not to breathe from here, but from down here. And you put a stuffed animal on their belly, and then you have them breathe where the little animal is like rocking. It becomes funny. But like that's teaching them to breathe from their diaphragm, like a musician or a singer, rather than this anxious up here. So thank you for that comment, Ashley. What else?
All right, so we have a couple more questions, but I want to just slow down. Is there anybody out there that wants to throw in? Because we're in the middle of a dialogue, so sometimes let's take a second to do our box breathing. But also,
are we talking about the right things for you guys? Are we on track? Is that what?
Yeah, and also one of the things we were going to say, if there is a podcast you recently or even historically have listened to and you wanted to throw, that's why we called it Pod Chat. We want a chance for you guys, if you've had some thoughts or feelings or questions about a particular podcast or something as well, feel free to kind of jump that in, because we can kind of go more deeply in any of the podcasts.
That's right. And by the way, at the end of this, we're gonna, or maybe at some point in this, we're going to give you guys some references of some very favorite, really new podcasts, not ours, but some episodes of some cool people that I know that you'll be interested in if you're in this community. So help me remember to do that, or maybe I should just say it real quickly.
Yeah.
Should I? And also, Andrew, I saw your question about
box breathing.
Box breathing, and we had talked about it a little bit earlier. It's just basically the 4-4-4-4. That's all it means. It's like
4 intake,
yeah. So
4 hold,
yeah,
4
exhale,
out,
and then you hold for 4.
Yeah.
So
Hi, Marge.
so here's and if somebody can grab this, what I'm about to say, and put it in the notes, that way other people can see it. But okay, just very recently, Ezra Klein. And it's Ezra Klein, and he's with the New York Times. And
Podcast, yeah.
he has a podcast where he interviewed Bessel van der Kolk. And what was the takeaway, like, we want this to just be action-packed with cool stuff. The takeaway, and he started by talking about that the devastating argument in that book isn't that the body keeps the score, it's that the mind erases the score. So there's an over an hour conversation with van der Kolk that he did, and he's a great interviewer. So we would really highly recommend that. And then there is another one where Tim Ferriss.
Before you jump into that,
Yeah.
just for those that don't, I was looking for the book because I had this book right here, but I don't see it. For those of you that are wondering what body keeps the score, just in general, just so that you know, it means that when we have a traumatic event in our histories, it really is inside our body and in our nervous system. It is not just in our head and our thoughts.
Or not in our head.
Or not in, but
right.
yes, it's not in our head. Yes.
Yeah. So that van der Kolk book is called Does the Body Keep the Score? The Body Keeps the Score, not Does the Body Keep the Score. There's another one, Tim Ferriss, huge podcaster, interesting at just sort of watching him. He has typically done like performance and second place is first loser and those kinds of things. And I have noticed he started
transformed.
He started
He's
having
more green than he used to be.
He started having Brene Brown on and Tara Brach. And basically, so that performance began to change into relationality. So that
You'll
was
know
cool.
him by the 4-hour work week.
4-hour work week. Oh.
Yeah.
But who he had on recently was Sue Johnson, and that's great. So there's a long interview with her, and Sue Johnson did Hold Me Tight, and basically that's emotionally focused therapy. Highly recommend. Great stuff. So those are 2 other podcasts and episodes, and there's another one that I'll probably think of later.
What I love about that is that these are, like you said, these high performance, very left brain intellectual. Like, used to be very focused on competition, especially not Ezra Klein, actually, Tim Ferriss. And what I love about that is probably what's kicking our butt in society more now than ever.
Power over
the idea
versus
of
power with.
Yeah, the idea of competition and power over and dominance and be better than. It ends up creating, honestly, even as we say it, it creates a sense of competition and threat no matter what. So you're not in relation. You can't be in relation with somebody and be over them. You can't be in relation and be better than them. And so, to be frank,
Oh yeah.
Tim Ferriss used to love some of his interviews, but he used to drive me crazy. And now, I love how you said it. The more he has gotten into these interviews that are very relational, you see him, like he's even said, I've changed my tunes. He literally said that, I'm not making it up, because he can see the power of the relationality.
That's right.
And how I'm on this soapbox, but getting in a relational standpoint is extremely, extremely important. So
Yeah, from a power over to a power with.
Okay,
Just another quick thing about other podcasters for a second. And by the way, Andrew, thank you. We did post it on the page a while back, and he said he's listened to it, and it's great. But I also just had another thought about these kind of public figures. So Brene Brown, love. Like, she's somebody I'm embarrassed to love. But I do. I think she's actually really good and has really, really, really good stuff.
she's on Spotify, by the way.
Yeah, but the reason I mention it is I know I'm sure you're familiar with her, and she talks a lot about wholeheartedness but I don't know. I want to like somehow talk to her about this, but you know how that goes. But really, what she's talking about is security, is like an integrated mind and security. And I haven't heard her integrate the attachment research and her social science research about what makes for wholeheartedness. So that's just an aside. I don't know if anybody has any connections, but like I would really like to have that conversation around to bring these things together.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation with her on that.
Yeah.
So Leanne, I like your question. Let me read that. She said this is in left field. It doesn't feel like it's in left field.
No, there's a big discussion going on about this. So I do have thoughts about it.
You said, but I wondered, wait, so where to go say? I wondered if you have any thoughts about story follows state, polyvagal, versus thoughts create feelings, and if those things are in conflict with each other.
Yep, that's a very interesting, there's a whole conversation about this, and also, by the way, there's questions about like, is polyvagal true, and is it real, and we're following all of that. I think the biggest thing right now, the story follows state. What's so important about that, this is a really important one, that 90% of all your brain activity, like your reactions and your responses, is generated from inside your body. And we don't think that. We think we're responding to that over there. So we have a lot to say about that particular thing, but that has to do with the story follows state.
And what we mean by that is that the story follows state is that we are actually, instead of seeing that, say, that makes me mad, it's like we sense it, and we have a nervous system, we have a body response, and then we tell a story about how we're feeling. So that's what we mean by story follows state.
And like Lisa Feldman Barrett is somebody that, so it's not just cognitive behavioral, there's this other idea of like, if you have a language for something, then it creates the feeling. And so it's just another really interesting, oh great, that's great, thank you Hillary. Awesome, that's exactly what I wanted, to be able to share that. So it's a controversy, and I don't think it's an either or. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, personally.
Right.
And the story versus state thing, to me, what's important about it is that it slows down. Like, to me, the thought creates the state is generally what we think, generally not true. There are some, like Lisa Feldman Barrett stuff about like when you add language and you can like finally identify a feeling, then you feel the feeling. It's a very technical point. It's off to the side. I think for our purposes and secure relating, it's more important to keep in mind that it's our body that's driving most of our responses and reactions. Then we confabulate, well, this is why this is. It's kind of like a dream. Like when you have a dream, it's really hard to explain the dream, so you kind of confabulate it to make it understandable to somebody. That's a little bit of a way to think of it. But if we think of it in those terms, then we can hold it lightly. Like you're always late is a story that if I'm aware of, like, yeah, you're always late, but sometimes I'm upset about it and sometimes I'm not. She's not always late, by the way. But so in other words, like bringing myself into it instead of like, yeah, you're always late, it shows you don't care. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a story. But it's being generated by I'm upset or I'm hurt or I'm let down, and so I'm telling you about that. Versus if I'm keep in mind story follows state means, oh wait, I'm in this, so whether you're late or not, I'm having an emotional reaction. That's actually our place of interest. So that's where we want y'all to go a little bit more, is where that we're being curious and open, and here's one story I could tell about you being late, and here's another story I could tell about you being late, and I'm not invested in a story.
But what story, and just to bring it into what story, so our senses are going to pick things up faster than we know, because you're going to just do somebody's eye contact and squint, that you're going to have a sensation based on your own history about that, and it's going to affect your body and the story. And I love what you're saying, but it's also that what story we end up letting ourselves continue to tell, it does affect our state. And so we can, like you said, we could reframe the story. So those definitely, our thoughts can be the primary part that affects our feelings.
Mm-hmm. Right, especially if I'm driving the story, then yeah. So I guess it's a little bit like a crazy eight, and where do you pick up? But so there's also, thank you, hi Ashley Taylor, and I guess you guys saw, we've finished up section season 5.
Season 5.
Roughly, we've been doing replays. We're taking a little bit of a break. We already have a lot of cool stuff in the can that we've already recorded, including the one that I'm most excited about, which is an interview, a 2-part interview with Carol George, who developed the adult attachment projective. You want to know anything about attachment? This woman studied directly with Mary Main and the whole gang. So we're bringing that to you soon.
That's a fan girl you like having. You love, I think it's been really fun to see how excited you are.
God.
Yeah, that's been so fun.
Well, just the brilliance. And then as far as the ideal parent figure, thank you for asking about that. There's so much interest in that, and there's really just not enough resource. So what that is our good friend David Elliott and Dan Brown. Both of them have been on the show. Highly recommend you check out those episodes. It's a powerful technique
for sure,
and it is evolving. And we've got David is actually writing more about it. We're doing some work with it as well. And I think the biggest thing I would say right now is not to worry about it's not even ideal parent. It can be whatever the imagery is that brings you comfort. And so sometimes that's non-human, sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's 2 moms, 2 dads, 1 mom, an amorphous, nice uncle, good teacher, and then Carol Burnett or somebody, you know what I mean? We can make it up, and that's what's so cool. But what you're making up is the thing that this image that can directly respond personally to you in the most specific way possible that you need in that moment. So that's the really cool thing about it. But I think that we have those references to learn more.
Well, and one of the things that that's fascinating about all this research is that what we do imagine, like we were just talking a minute ago about the story we end up telling affects the feelings that we have, and that we can alter that. Our imagination, that's the core of this. We have several podcasts on there, and somebody might want to throw which one's on there if you want to hear more about Ideal Parent and you missed the interviews, so you can grab those interviews. But that the idea, like you were saying, of our imagination and how deeply our imagination impacts our entire nervous system and how we feel, and can actually literally change the way our body works in the long run. That's an amazing concept.
Yeah, even kind of the idea of when you have a bad dream, being able to sort of redream it and have it end in a more secure way.
It's a great thing to do with kids, by the way, when they have a nightmare.
It's a great thing to do with grown-ups, too.
Yeah, but if your child has a nightmare, and they wake up and they're saying the monster's this and this, and you want to hold them, and that's wonderful, and it's great. And then you can say, and then what happened? Say, and then what can we do with the monster? And then what happened? And then
the big eagle flies in.
Finish that imagery in a secure way, because you want the body to be able to come down together.
I love that, because part of what all these attachment instruments are looking for, again, it's the unconscious. I also really quickly want to say, the developmental attachment research is very different than the adult attachment research. The adult attachment research, which is the kind that you can do online, there is social science. It's a whole different animal than the developmental attachment research. The developmental attachment research is where that you have to do these instruments to kind of get around your unconscious. It's the story that comes up in threat, and you can't directly access it because all of these things happen before you have narrative. Your hippocampus is online, and you have narrative, autobiographical narrative. But it's basically kind of the programming of the software and the hardware. So those are those two different things. But what they're looking for in these stories are, so for example, there's a picture and you tell a story about what's happening, and we can't help but project our stuff onto it. So if we're telling a scary story about what happened here and it just ends, so the notion is let the story finish. So what you're describing with letting the dream continue, or what you're imagining continue, is that you let it finish in a way that where that you have you or the child has agency, that they can do something about it, that they're not helpless, super important, and that they have competent resources that they can turn to if they're in trouble, and that they're able to do that, and that those resources are available.
It's a really good
So
point.
those are the things where we want to move from, like, I'm in a foxhole. The guy in the foxhole that thinks the army is right over the thing and about to rescue them is going to psychologically do better than the guy in the foxhole, same situation, that is like, we're doomed, we're dead. Like that passive, helpless state that collapses, much more damaging versus like, I can do something about this. I don't want to even use violent references. We have enough of that right now.
I get a total power of association with that, but totally related. This same thing happens if you are conflicting in front of a child, if you as partners or parents, and you have a fight and you think, oh, I don't want to fight, and you cut it off and you leave and y'all go resolve it, but you never actually bring your child along with that, they get stuck in that imagined hostile state. You guys might go off or quit speaking, but they're still activated. So it is a really wonderful thing in the same vein to have that repair happen. And even if you've had to go away and you come back and you say, so that you can have, that child gets to have a full wraparound rather than get stuck, because they will continue to imagine.
I love that.
And a young child is going to imagine all sorts of disconnect, not really.
Or they'll just cut off their own feelings and not have the benefit of that. Yeah, no, that's really good. So, hi, Kyra Button. Therapy question. Does the patient generalize the therapy session? Is that the main benefit of therapy, or is it what's being taught? I love this question.
It's a great question.
Yep. I have a thought. Do you have a thought?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Therapy it's almost never that the therapist knows something and you don't know it, and then they impart their great wisdom, and then you go, la, and everything's better. That almost never happens. If it does happen, it's great, but that's not the main change that happens in therapy. The change that can happen in therapy, well, there's lots of different ways, but it's more, you've got to have something to talk about while your two nervous systems are having a different experience. So it's the experience of safety, and even challenging that safety by being angry with your therapist, questioning them, being soft with them and allowing them to be there for you, being vulnerable. It's the experience of the safety that can, over time, rewire and update your model of security. It's way more bottom up than it is that the therapist knows something and gives you some advice. That's my thought. What's yours?
I love that. I echo everything. I will add that sometimes therapy, in fact, though, needs to be generalized, because sometimes you run into the risk of being the most special person or the only one that can understand them. And I think that is also So I love the idea about generalizing. It's so important in therapy for therapy to be generalized. It's not like, oh, you always get me, nobody else does. Of course, it's a wonderful thing as a therapist to feel you can give somebody. But as you're giving them that new bodied experience, helping them know that experience is out there for them and maybe right next to them, and opening and taking that experience and learning how to relate to other people in a way that brings them. We sometimes don't realize that the way we're relating is eliciting hostility from other people, and we just keep seeing the world as hostile. And then you go into this therapy who's just calm and always connecting, and then you can amplify this belief, see, you get me, nobody else does. So but you notice how we're pulling these positive things and you're eliciting. You want to help it be transferable.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's funny. We interpreted that differently. But
I interpreted it that way first, but I was glad you covered that.
Both of that is true, because you're right. If you're only learning how to have a relationship with this one person, that's not the point. For sure. And the idea is that those skills that you're learning and that being generalized. I love though what you're saying, because sometimes people can get in deep therapy and the spouse or the close person isn't, or people. And then, I always say that it should come with a warning label or something, because, I'm here for therapy and you're here to give me therapy. So we're both here for me, and this feels really good. And what is wrong with the world? And, my husband or whoever it is, you don't listen. And so,
well, that actually leads right into another question that a listener had asked, and it's a great one. And that is, how do you know when it's time to go to couples therapy? How do you know couples therapy is a good idea? And I have lots of thoughts about that. and part of it is if you're even asking the question, I almost say yes. Like, I think to think about, obviously not everybody needs to be in couples therapy, but I am an advocate for changing the, yeah, well, really, true, I guess, the changing the
Go to the gym.
that's exactly, changing the concept about what couples therapy is about. Don't think of, people wait way too long. And it was actually a two-pronged question. How do you know, and how do you help your spouse decide to do it? And so, try to make it super quick. Yeah, it's a great question. And that is, so one of the things is to really help understand that, just like Sue just said, couples therapy is about going to the gym. It's like learning how to relate and connect is probably the most powerful thing you can do. And it's a little like you grow so much individually as you go through life. It's not like, okay, you get married or you're in a relationship and that's exactly who you're going to be. Y'all are going to grow, and you want to grow by learning and deepening. And so I would say going to couples therapy is an act of becoming closer. One of the things you want to note, if you feel like you're having repetitive patterns that you're saying, I am so tired of this, we keep doing this over and over again, that is one I would really say, jump into therapy way before it becomes part of your body and your narrative.
But an interesting part of that question, I don't know, it maybe you said it as like, what if the other person,
right,
or people are not interested,
mm-hmm.
but you believe that you should go? So what about that?
Well, I think that one of the most important principles is to not, A, bring it up related to a conflict.
Oh, okay.
B, make them feel like we need to go to couples therapy. What you're really saying, I need to get your ass in therapy so they can tell you how wrong you are, right? So I think it's an invitation of, I would like to be, I love our relationship, or I'm struggling and I love you. And the goal is closer connection, and it's not that we are bad, yeah. We are in trouble, mm-hmm. and we need to go get help, because the assumption, especially depending on where you fall on that spectrum, saying we are in trouble is a really threatening alarm cell that will say, I don't know about you, but I'm not touching it. So you give these sense of we are good, I love you, you're worth it, would you do this with me, because I think it would be an amazing experience together.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good answer.
That's it.
I like that.
All right.
I would go even if I was like that. I mean, that's a lot harder thing to turn down than, And so if I were to say, but therapy is stupid. Like, I don't need therapy. We shouldn't put our laundry out for everybody to see.
Yes, I can see why you would feel threatened if you felt like we had all this dirty laundry. But what we're really doing is going to really get closer, get deeper. Like it's like this thing that's going to be a really valuable thing. I want to live a long time with you, and growing together.
All right, now I'm in therapy now. Okay, I can go along with that.
And then the other thing I would suggest is, would you do an agreement with me? Would you go for 3 times, and then we'll re-talk about it? Would you at least walk in, have a couple of sessions, and then we'll revisit? And most of the time, people go in. And honestly, the person that was reluctant ends up, in my experience, almost right away feeling really glad they're there. So,
well, you're a particularly good couples therapist, though.
Oh, you're biased. But
no. I mean it. They're like, so if you're a therapist out there, being able to engage someone that's further out is a really good skill.
And to help them see that it's going to be a win-win. That we're not there. You have to really know that I'm not there to point at you. That's a really important step. All right. Anybody else have any other questions as we're sitting?
Now, also, we really want to encourage y'all a couple of things. We're always interested in hearing from you guys. If you're just joining us, Sue, Marriott, and Kelley from Therapist Uncensored.
Oh, I guess we should have started, because I'm Ann.
And basically, it's a podcast about the relational sciences and the interpersonal neurobiology or relational neurobiology, depending on where you're coming from. Being able to translate all of that complex science into understandable, digestible tidbits to be able to use in your life. That's the gist of what we are interested in.
Good summary.
If you haven't subscribed, please do. Leave us a review. That helps other people find it. We appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Also, contact us anytime. info@Therapist Uncensored. It's the best spot. Send in topic ideas if you would like. But then also, if you're interested in more, we do have a private community We call them our neuro nerds. And that's patreon.com/Therapist Uncensored. And for as little as $5 a month, you can join us. And we have, we do different things, but some of it's just access. But some of it also is like we create these reading pods, is what we call them. They're little small reading groups so that you get to know other people. It's a way of building community, but it's also a way of continuing to learn. So that is another thought or idea. We also do have a course. It's a monster. I barely recommend it only because it's so long.
You make it so tempting.
I know.
We could get reviews on
But
it.
be sure and use our clan if you want it. Use our clan, and that'll give you a discount. That's on our webpage, which is therapistuncensored.com.
So, Hillary, I appreciate that. She says, just loving this format with these chats be reoccurring with some regularity. Sue and I have been talking about doing that. We decided to call it PodChats.
Right. This was an experiment.
This is an experiment. So we would
we'll have to talk about it afterwards instead of committing, right?
Yes. But we would love to hear y'all's thoughts about that.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
would need some enthusiasm.
Thank you guys saying so many nice things that are
New Zealand!
Thank you.
Love
Hi,
New
Susan
Zealand.
Oh, that you're not Susan Smith, you're, wait a minute. New Zealand.
Yes.
We love New Zealand.
And actually, anybody who's calling in or looking from overseas, we just are so blown away by that, and it's so exciting. We're over, again, many of you are listeners, but over 2 million downloads at this point, which is crazy. What it means is that people are really interested in learning this stuff and working on their relationships. I have sun in my face.
Texas sun.
Texas sun.
Do we have time? We have one quick question. I don't know that we're going to have time to answer that.
Go ahead. What is
we might have to save this one. Curious asking if you still have time. Do people with narcissistic trait have difficulty with their identity as they relate to others? If yes, how and what to do about that? Yes. So, and there's we do have a whole series about narcissism. So I really want to help you, maybe lean you towards that since we're running out of time here. But the question's a really great one. And we want to think about narcissism in this really, actually in a very compassionate way, that narcissism actually emerges out of a sense of threat and out of a sense of a threat of self and identity, and then how it acts out. And sometimes it comes out in a grandiose way, sometimes in a more subversive way. But it really, really is, and what are the things you do about it? And I don't know if that was a question about whether it's you or somebody in relationship, but the series we called Holding Your Own, with difficult personalities, holding your own, even if you are the difficult personality, because let's face it, we all are difficult personalities. But I would say check that out, because we run out of time.
No, but also the question is about identity, and yes, like if somebody really... we all have narcissism, but if they're particularly high on the scale of narcissism, typically it's an injury, a very early injury, where the issue of identity, yes, it's an issue of identity. Like it's, and it has to do with like not feeling enough, and then it's the defense around that to try to feel, to basically the resourcing from outside.
And one
so
of the things,
that's a really short way of saying
one of the things you definitely want to do with it if you are in relationship, there. If you are in relationship with that, is to make sure that when I say hold your own, it something that a narcissist unintentionally or very intentionally can do is consistently draw your energy towards them. And even in a reactive way, even where you're walking around angry all the time towards them, right? That's still, you have to remember that's still drawing your energy.
Yeah,
so
your cognitive pie is being taken up very
so if you're
much with this other person.
If you're always angry going, you have to stop doing this. Or if it's always like, oh, if I stand up, they're going to get angry, so I have to disappear. So either extreme is a kind of a loss of center. So do what you can to find your center so that even when you approach this individual that you may really love, that you're holding your own as you approach them, rather than just waiting to react, and that you get to hold your own energy. So, very short answer to that. I don't know if that was helpful.
Well, but and to add to that, just as far as this is for everybody that's listening, if we started this conversation about really helping or encouraging those of you that are tent poles to take care of yourself and not worry about the community that you're holding up for a little while, to trust that and to take care of yourself. So each of you listening, you're probably tuning in for some reason. Of course you're tuning in for some reason, but what I mean is, like, we reach out in times like this for connection. And so we really want to encourage you to listen to yourself. And maybe there's a way to deepen, what friends have you not spoken with? Are you on the fence about getting in therapy? We would encourage you then to go ahead and do it. Right now, with everybody on telehealth, there's a bazillion therapists out there with every kind of, EFT, IFS, EMDR, DBT. There's a bazillion resources for some of you. And this is part of why we do this for free, is we want to be giving the resources for those who might not otherwise be able to have it. But if you can, through your church, through your synagogue, but what we're doing is we're really encouraging you just to do a little bit, like everybody right now could use somebody spotting the bar. So
I like that. Spotting
friendships,
the bar.
family, whatever that is. And then the other thing would be to get physical, to move your body, to do something, because that's going to, just those two things, get a little bit more emotional support, and then take your walks, pick up the little barbell while you're on your Zoom meeting, whatever it is, but because we need to be taking care of these poor little embodied selves. So, all right.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you guys for Catherine and Ashley for popping those podcasts that we were referencing.
That's right.
Andrew, we will talk more about that since we're at the end. I love the question, though, and so we will come back to that. In fact, maybe what I'll do is when we talk more, I'm going to jump on it. And his questions that we seem to tap around narcissism, that seems to be a little taboo, hinting around without saying it.
I don't know if that's true.
That's interesting, though. I'm going to think about
the
that.
one with Romani, Dr. Romani, I forget. That would be a good one to tune into.
Okay.
So here's the thing: if we do this again,
Finland.
it'll be probably, like, we were thinking of doing it monthly, and open to your feedback about that. Let us know how this went. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, hopefully see
Thank
you
you
next
for everybody
month.
tuning in.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Bye, guys. We really appreciate y'all.